I never intended to buy my cousin's company. Jared never planned to stop mocking my tiny little firm either. But life has a strange way of evening the score. The annual Preston family holiday gala was in full swing at my aunt's sprawling Charleston estate, where jewel-toned cocktails sparkled in crystal glasses beneath twinkling chandeliers, designer shoes clicked across marble floors, and egos clashed in loud, glittering conversations. I stood quietly by the dessert table, nursing a club soda in a vintage coupe, watching Jared hold court near the grand piano. He was bragging to the captive crowd of relatives about the acquisition deal almost sealed, how once Stratascourt merged. With Alder Digital, he'd oversee the entire Southeast Division. Adjusting his cufflinks with the practiced charm of a cologne ad model, Jared had always known how to perform, and the family devoured it, especially my aunt, who beamed at him just like she did when he won debate championships or landed prestigious internships on Capitol Hill. "What about you, Celine?" Uncle Mark asked, his tone dripping with fake sweetness. "Still running that tiny little strategy outfit?" I nodded politely, already imagining the legal team waiting on my signature. At home the next morning, yes, still running my firm. Jared chuckled without bothering to look at me. "Still operating that boutique operation? How many people now? 4? 5? 8? I answered flatly but said no more. Let him believe Perigine Strategies was just a small consulting firm doing marketing for mom-and-pop shops. Let him think I was still the quiet cousin who quit corporate life in her late 20s, armed with nothing but a laptop and a rented desk at a co-working space. Jared swirled his drink like a Bond villain and offered, "I could talk to our VP at Alder. Get you a real role. Something steady. You're what, 35 now? Stability matters." My mother forced a tight smile. "That's very kind, Jared." I clenched my glass tighter, recalling the acquisition contract waiting in my inbox where Perigine Strategies was set to finalize a majority stake in Alder Digital by week's end. "Thanks, but I'm doing just fine," I said evenly. Jared shrugged and turned back to his audience, launching into grandiose speeches about post-merger restructuring, streamlining legacy systems, and revolutionizing Alder's market approach. "Alder needs new energy," he declared, raising his glass and loose solid but too traditional. "Careful. I'm ready to take risks, make bold moves, lead." Almost pitying him, I watched as the doorbell rang sharply at 8:30 p.m. Jared straightened, signaling for calm. "Okay, folks, keep it classy. Michael Liu, Alder's CEO, is practically family after this merger." The grand doors swung open, to reveal Michael Liu himself, silver-haired and dignified, his tailored overcoat slung elegantly over his arm. The room hushed, but instead of approaching Jared, his eyes scanned and locked onto me. Smiling warmly, he said, "Miss Preston, thank you for the invitation. I wanted to personally thank you for making this transition seamless." Jared blinked, stunned. "Sir, you know my cousin?" Michael looked genuinely puzzled. "Of course. Celine Preston is the reason I'm here tonight. She's the one who acquired Alder Digital." Silence crashed over the room like a thunderclap. Jared's tumbler slipped from his hand onto the Persian rug with a soft thud. My aunt gasped, clutching her pearls. My uncle looked like he'd been unplugged. "That's not possible," Jared whispered, voice hollow. "She runs some local firm, does marketing for small shops." I gently set my coupe glass on the mantel. "Actually, Perigine Strategies is much more than that. We're a global acquisitions and restructuring firm, and as of yesterday, we hold the controlling stake in Alder." The truth was out. The company they'd sneered at wasn't tiny. It was a massive, silent, strategic powerhouse. While they flaunted their galas and war stories, I had built an empire that now included Jared's entire division. He looked like he might be sick. "And as for your promotion," I added softly, "we'll be discussing some organizational changes." The room fell into a suffocating silence. You could almost hear the fragile machinery of pride, denial, and assumptions grind to a halt inside everyone's minds. Jared's empty glass dangled limply from his fingers as Michael Liu, calm as ever, continued with the kind of professional admiration my family had never shown me. Miss Preston's acquisition team is one of the sharpest I've ever worked with. The way Peregrine structured the buyout, the timing, the leverage, the compliance, was masterful. He glanced at Jared with a quiet finality. Your cousin is one of the most strategic minds I've encountered. Jared's face flushed, from pale to deep crimson in seconds, his voice cracking as he stammered. This has to be some kind of joke. Celine, doesn't she? She can't run a multi-billion-dollar company, can't outmaneuver a legacy board, can't be more than that freelancing cousin who left a stable job chasing a pipe dream. Our aunt finally broke the silence, her voice trembling with disbelief. Celine, darling, why didn't you say anything? I turned slowly to face her, voice steady. Because none of you ever asked or wanted to hear it. Remember last Christmas when Jared mocked my internet hobby and you all laughed like it was cute? Or the year before when Uncle Mark suggested I take community college classes to get back on track? Uncle Mark winced and muttered, We were just worried about you. I swirled the last of my soda and said, Paragon Strategies now manages over $12 billion in global assets. In the past 3 years, we've acquired 17 companies. That tiny firm just bought Alter Digital for $4 billion, $200 million. Aunt Lillian gasped. Someone dropped a cookie platter, and Jared's face contorted as if he might scream. You can't do this, he hissed, stepping closer. You can't just buy my company. I've worked there for 8 years. I was supposed to be the next division director. Michael Lau cleared his throat, but I cut him off gently. Let me handle this. Locking eyes with Jared, I said, We need to talk about your role at Alter. His voice cracked. My role? I earned that promotion. You can't just walk into my office. The crowd parted as I led him down the hallway, whispers trailing behind us. Jared slammed the door, his executive mask crumbling fast. If you want to hear what I told Jared behind that door, how everything changed after, make sure to subscribe, because that's where the real reckoning begins. Jared demanded sharply, How long have you been planning this? Was this some twisted revenge scheme? I sat calmly in his prized leather chair, his symbol of control, while he paced erratically, trying to outrun the truth. Believe it or not, Jared, I said, not everything is about you. Paragon has been analyzing Alder for years. The fact you work there? Just a curious coincidence. He let out a bitter laugh. You expect me to believe that? That you've always been jealous of my success? Without a word, I opened my banking app and held up the screen. His eyes locked on the number and widened. That can't be real. I said evenly, That's my personal liquid net worth. Just the accessible portion. Paragon Strategies is worth significantly more. So Jared, remind me again, what does success look like to you? He sank into the guest chair, anger draining, shoulders slumped. Why didn't you ever say anything? Would you have listened? I leaned back, folding my hands. You were all so sure I was failing. Remember when I missed Uncle Mark's birthday dinner and you told everyone I probably couldn't afford to fly home, that I was too embarrassed to admit it? Silence was his answer. I was in Singapore, I continued, negotiating the Turner Industries acquisition, a $2.8 billion deal. But all of you assumed I was making excuses. His face turned pale green. That deal was you? He asked, hoarsely. And the Madison merger last fall, the Carson buyout last spring, all of Paragon. I confirmed. We've been quietly building a global empire while you lectured me about real jobs. He buried his face in his hands, whispering, You own Alter, you own my company. Yes, I said, standing and smoothing my dress. And as the new controlling partner, I have concerns about West Coast Division leadership. His head snapped up. You wouldn't dare. I reached into my tote and pulled out a navy folder I'd prepared days ago. Let's talk about your performance reviews. Red flags, compliance shortcuts, missed deadlines. That's standard practice, he barked. No, I said firmly. It's sloppy and arrogant. Under Paragon's leadership, that ends now. Jared slumped back, the fight leaving him. So that's it? He muttered. You're firing me? Your own cousin? Not firing, I said calmly. I'm offering a choice. I opened the folder and turned it toward him. Take a lateral transfer to Minneapolis. Same pay, no promotion, fresh start, or resign with a 3-month severance. His mouth fell open. Minneapolis? But my life is here. My network, my condo, Your inflated sense of importance. I interrupted. I offered your golf club access, your nameplate on the parking spot. You'd lose it all but keep your job. Your choice. Jared stared, fingers trembling. This is cruel, Celine, he whispered. Using your power like this, it's cruel. Cruel? I stood slowly. Mocking my business at every family dinner was cruel. Calling me a failure behind my back was cruel. Suggesting I be your assistant was cruel. Through the heavy, dour party voices buzzed, the clink of glasses, laughter, still spinning their stories, rewriting history, pretending they'd always seen my potential. You have until New Year's to decide, I said, walking to the door. Oh, and Jared, I glanced back. That corner office you love? I'm turning it into a wellness lounge. His face twisted, but I didn't wait for a reply. Back, at the party, my parents and aunts fell silent as I approached. My mother stepped forward, arms open. Celine, sweetheart, we had no idea. Why didn't you tell us? I paused, stepping back. Would it have made a difference, Mom, if it wasn't flashy or public? She faltered. Of course it would have. We're your family. I shook my head gently. No, you're people who share my last name. Family supports without needing proof. Family listens even when the story isn't impressive. My father cleared his throat. Celine, we may have misjudged some things, but we always wanted what was best for you. Did you? I asked softly. Or what looked best to your tennis club circle? Just then Michael Luwu arrived, saving them from answering. Miss Preston, he said politely. I'll be heading out early tomorrow for integration sessions. Of course, I smiled. My team will have paperwork on your desk by 9 a.m. As he left, I heard my mother whisper to Aunt Lillian, Did you hear that? She has a team. I almost laughed. Now they were proud, now they were curious. Now that my success was loud enough for their social circles, they finally wanted to listen. Jared emerged dazed minutes later, heading straight to the bar, pouring 2 fingers of bourbon with a trembling hand. Cousins and uncles swarmed, asking questions he couldn't answer. For once, he stayed silent. Gathering my clutch and coat, I thought, this wasn't how I wanted to reveal the truth. Not at a family gala, not so publicly. But maybe that made it better. It was clean, final, impossible to dismiss. As I reached the door, my father called out, We've barely spoken. You must tell us more about your firm, your acquisitions, your team. I glanced at my watch. I have a 6 a.m. flight to London, board meeting with a potential new acquisition. My mother cried. But it's Christmas. Yes, I said softly. And for the first time, you all truly understand why I won't be here anymore. No more assumptions I skipped family events out of shame. No more whispers that I was broke, alone or embarrassed. I'm leaving because I'm successful. Because I've built something extraordinary. And while you doubted me, I was becoming someone who didn't need your approval. I paused at the door and turned one last time. Oh, and Jared, remember when you offered to put in a word for me at altar? Don't worry, I think I'll manage. The look on his face was worth a decade of condescension. Almost as I drove down the oak-lined driveway, my phone buzzed with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. "Congratulations. Let's catch up. We always knew you'd go far." I deleted everyone. They say success is the best revenge, but they're wrong. The real victory isn't buying the company your cousin swore he'd run, or outmaneuvering your entire family at their own game. The real victory is never needing their approval to begin with. 3 months later, Jared quietly accepted the Minneapolis transfer. My parents introduced me proudly as their visionary entrepreneur daughter, skipping the part where they once suggested I get an admin certification. And me? I'd just finalized another acquisition. A modest tech firm in Savannah, Preston Dynamics, my father's retirement project, his pride and joy, the legacy he always dreamed Jared would lead. I had my assistant send over the ownership transfer letter. Sometimes silence speaks loudest, especially when it comes with a header that reads, "From the desk of your tiny firm owner." If this story resonates, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated, overlooked, told your dreams were too small? What did you do? Your support means everything. I built quietly. Now I'm speaking up. Not just for me, but for everyone who's been dismissed. Share your advice, your experiences, or what you wish someone had told you when you started. And if you believe in quiet strength and victories won over the long game, hit subscribe. Let's keep proving success doesn't need permission.